Good morning, everybody. I hope you are having a super awesome day. You have joined your girl Takela Swain here on Life Enchanted, and I have a segment that I want to share with you. Today, I was reading a set of scriptures in the book of John. It was John 8, verses 3 through 11, I believe. And of course, that segment of scripture talks about the young lady who was caught in adultery, and that there were some accusers in that particular town that came and pulled her from her situation, brought her to Jesus, and wanted to know, like, what are we going to do about this situation? Now, we all know that we can relate to somebody who always seem to be in somebody else's business and want to try to bring a situation to someone who has wisdom and insight so that they can try to use their words to twist it some kind of way. And usually those are individuals that are really not trying to live a straight life, really not trying to find any justice in a situation. They just want to try to always bring about drama and discord. And that's what these accusers were. They knew that Jesus was a righteous man and that, of course, tons of people were always following him and involved in his ministry. And so they wanted to try to take his words and conscrew them in a way that could be later used in a negative sense towards him. And so they brought the young lady to Jesus and they said, hey, this lady was caught in adultery. Their rules and regulations at that time said that we are supposed to stone her. What is it that you say? And so they said that Jesus just looked at them and was like, and sat or squat down in the sand or dirt and just started writing. And so after a while, they just kept saying like, well, what do you say, man? I mean, you come here teaching us all this other stuff. And of course I'm ad-libbing, but this is my version of what was going on. And so they were just like, man, you've been teaching all this other stuff and you giving us all this insight. You don't have any insight on this. You don't think we should do that. So they just kept going and going. And they said, after a while, Jesus stood up like, okay, listen, I tell you what, the one who has not sinned at all, you be the first one to throw the stone. And so I could just imagine them looking around like, wait a minute, this is a trick question. He's trying to get us. And when they really thought about it, it said from the oldest to the youngest end up walking away until there was only Jesus and the young lady left. Now, I've heard this scripture, sets of scripture, so many times, and I heard tons of people preach on it, but I never recall anyone mentioning verse 8. And verse 8 says, and not to this degree that I actually just reviewed it recently, and it said that the young lady was left there with Jesus in the middle of the crowd. Now, usually what I've heard taught or people reference was just like, won't nobody left there but the young lady and Jesus. But the scripture clearly says that no one was left there that was her accuser, but there were still people there in the crowd. And of course that made significant it made sense because everywhere Jesus went there was a crowd. So of course this situation wouldn't have been any different. Everybody wouldn't have been like, oh, he about to talk to her, let's leave. Somebody was just like, I'm just gonna hear what he gonna say to her because he told them to leave, but he might have something else that we gonna hear, so let's stay. So as she was standing there in the crowd, I was like, God, why is that significant? Why was it significant that not only did her accusers go away, but you chose to deal with her while she was still yet in the midst of the crowd? And I think the significance for that is that sometimes God has to deal with our situation while we're in the middle of a crowd. Some things he will deal with us one-on-one by ourselves in private, but some things do need to be addressed in the public. And it's not necessarily so that we can be scrutinized and be like, oh my God. It's for the significance of, those who were in that crowd had their own view about what was going on with a young lady. Some people held thoughts in their mind. Some people had different judgments in their heart. They may not have been the accusers with the stone, but they still have their own thought and opinion. And by Jesus addressing that issue there in the crowd, it solidified her healing right there in that moment. Because he told her, if there are no other accusers here for you, then you go and sin no more. Which meant all of this has been forgiven for you. Now you know the wrong that you were doing. Now go forth and do it no more. So he cleared that up for her, but it also cleared it up in the minds of those around her so that no matter if she happened to go uptown and decide that she wanted to go buy some grain or something for her family, she didn't have to worry about those eyes looking at her like she would have wanted y'all see her. Because you know how people talk with their eyes. They ain't saying the word, but they're like, over there, you see. She didn't have to worry about that because God addressed her issue publicly. So not only did she feel privately that she was forgiven, but she knew publicly that she was justified and she was forgiven. And also, sometimes God would do that in a public setting too, so that those people that were there could be mirrors for you. They can reflect back to you when you're having a difficult moment and want to go back into that state of pity and be like, oh Lord, did you really forgive me? Like I've really done some craziness in my life. those people can be mirrors to you to reflect back to you like, I was there on that day and I remember when he did this. Now for us in this time, for what's significant for us, we can reflect back to that of the cross, knowing that no matter what we have done, no matter what we've thought, well, no matter what we're have participated in, or whatever, what have you, Jesus has already died on the cross for those particular things. And so when we ask for his forgiveness, he takes those and put those into a sea of forgetfulness and tell us to go and sin no more. Same that he said to that young lady, which means you're forgiven. I've taken that away from you, but you still need to go forth and do this no more. Don't just try to be like, okay, forgive me, and then go back and do it again. No, go and sin no more. So I want to share that segment with you guys. Go back and view verse 8. No, chapter 8 in John and verse 8. I think it was 8 verse 8. Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, go back and review that and see how he reviewed that information with her in the midst of the crowd. Because sometimes we'll feel justified or we'll feel uncertain about certain things of like, oh God, why did this have to be public, or why did this have to be addressed at this time in front of these set of people? It was significant so that they can be made aware that you've been forgiven, and you can also have a mirror of reflection to remind you that you've been forgiven. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. As always, I ask that you like, subscribe, and share. But if you want to do one of those three things, I always say share, because the nuggets of wisdom that we share with one another indeed can enlighten someone else's concept or view about something and help them to go on a different way and sin no more. All right. So I'll talk to you guys soon, and I hope you have a super awesome day.